All right. Okay, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. This is, as you'll find out, probably my first live speaking engagement, so be patient. And I'm just honored that you guys all feel that I have something to share through all my experience. So far, these presentations have been awesome. I've just been so enlightened by what's come across, and Bill, just great job this morning. Steve, it's probably a little too late for me for a little coaching on my public speaking, but I'm working on it. I think I got the khaki pants, and I did, let's see, brought my own pointer, and I'm working on a southern accent. Probably the first couple things he would say, though, would be not to do it last thing before lunch, and definitely do not follow a Hall of Fame speaker like Bill Griffin. But that was not my choice. Anyway, thanks for having me. I thought it was interesting this morning when he put up the slide about why people refuse dental treatment. And it's very similar to why people refuse Christ. No perceived need, objection to the cost, and here again, failure to communicate, and that's what we all have to overcome. So, with that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience setting up dental clinics in a third world country, particularly Jamaica. Uh-oh. Okay. And as I'm preparing this, I'm thinking the only thing harder than doing dental trips is getting up and talking about them in front of all you guys. So thanks for your patience, and I just pray that you don't hear me, but you see the Christ through me who sends me. If you build it, they will come. We all heard that from a movie a long time ago, and that's been my dream, to build these clinics, and we would get patients as well as volunteers who would come. And in God's perfect timing, that will all happen. As Bill was talking about this morning, it's kind of starting to snowball, and that's a beautiful sight. God has been so gracious to me, leading me the whole way through 7 clinic setups and counting. And it seems like whenever we hit a roadblock, he was always there to show me the way. When I leaned on my own understanding, it didn't work. But you need to trust, and there was always the correct way, and that's God's way. I don't know how you guys do it when you go out and sleep in the jungles and hammocks and getting bug bites, and you got jaguars, and my hat's off to you guys. I mean, you don't have any running water. How do you do it? But God knows our limitations too, and he calls us each to a different location, and my location has been a little bit more cushy. You know, I mean, speaking about sleeping in the jungle, heck, I could hardly sleep here with the Patels running up and down this halls the other night. Jeez, if I can't make it here, I'd never make it out in the jungle. So keep up the good work, Gail, and the rest of you guys, and I'll do my thing too. You know, and it's also inspiring when you get together with brothers of Christ, how Satan tries to mess with you. How he tried to stop Gail from making it. The mule kicks him off. He breaks his collarbone. The airline's hassle. He gets in at 4 a.m. And who's the first speaker on the docket but Gail Cheatwood? You would never know by looking at him. He's up here in his cane and walking and hobbling, but he did a fantastic job. And God gives us the strength to make it through challenges like that. You can't sweat the small stuff, and we just have to be willing to go. Once again, we have to be willing to go and be fishers of men, and to catch fish we have to get up, get out of our comfort zone and go. There are lost people all over, and he calls us each to different places. For the past 16 years, my fishing hole has been Jamaica. Let's see here. I joined CDS after dental school and went on my first dental mission trip in 1994. I knew I wanted to do this type of work, but I didn't know. There was a lot of mission organizations, and you get newsletters here and there, and I was looking for something, a short-term one. I couldn't afford to really go a month away or to too far off land. Plus, you had to have approval of your spouse, and Jamaica seemed to be a safe one. We went to Mavis Bank, Jamaica, which, let's see, here's typically over in this area, okay? And then the other place Bill was talking about is Treasure Beach, which is on the south coast, okay? Montego Bay is up on top there. Kingston's over here. And Mavis Bank is up in the Blue Mountains where the wonderful coffee comes from, the world-famous Blue Mountain coffee. Most of the patients we see there are humble coffee farmers, or they may work in the factory that sort the beans, etc. The first week I was there, it had been raining so hard the week before, and the plan was to pack up and move and set up each day in a different church, like many of you guys do. And I had had such a time with the winding roads, I couldn't manage that. And it had rained so much the week before that we were stuck in Mavis Bank. So God again knew my limitations. He knew I wouldn't survive the roads. You don't want a sick dentist treating you. So we worked out at the Mavis Bank Health Center, which was right there. It had a dental room that was originally set up, it was just a vacant room, and they had a barber chair there. So years and years ago, they had put this thing together, hoping that a dentist would come and set something up. And so we were able to work in this little clinic for the first week of my first mission trip. After a few hours of bending over this old barber chair, I knew that I couldn't take it anymore. My back was just killing me. You guys, the stand-up dentists, I don't know how they did it, but I knew I had to do something differently. I love doing this type of work, but I have to set up some type of a more comfortable working situation for me and the patients. So I asked the nurse there, Jennifer McDonald, if I were to get some equipment and ship it down, would it be safe? Would it get hauled off by the local dentist or whatever? She said, I promise you, if you ship something down here, I'll lock it up, I'll keep a watch over it, and we'll take good care of it. And at that time, I had no equipment to speak of, but I was just kind of thinking maybe some years down the road. So I came home, hooked on dental missions, obviously, like we all are. And I wanted to start planning for my next trip. You know how we are on the plane, you get home and you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do next time. I love the people of the country. I love serving the Lord through the gift of dentistry. And with that, I started planning the next trip. My wife was a partner in a large group dental practice in the western suburbs of Chicago. There was 5 offices and 12 partners, and I thought, well, this is the first place to go. I'll ask them if they have any old dental equipment that they might be able to sell me that I could then move on to Jamaica. She checks with her partners, and they told me they have a huge storage garage full of dental equipment that I could have if I could get it out by the end of the month. That's typically the case. So they had been storing this equipment for years, thinking that they would eventually have a big garage sale and all these young dentists would come by and want all this old equipment, but young dentists seem to want the new stuff as well. So again, I knew it was God's plan that this equipment was there, stored, and in good working order for when and where he needed it. In fact, I got 10 dental chairs, 5 Chemclave sterilizers, doctors' assistant stools, x-ray machines, cabinetry, those mobile cabinets, which, it was almost like God set this aside for me, and it was where I needed it when I needed it. Now the problem is where to store all this equipment. I had to move it out of there because they didn't want to pay the storage. My landlord at the time had a appliance store. So those are pretty big. They got refrigerators and washers and dryers. And they had a huge basement, same size, but it was too humid down there for him to store his nice appliances. So I asked him if possible I could store some dental equipment down there. He said, sure, you could have that whole wall. It was probably as long as that wall over there. And it was up on pallets too, so that the water couldn't get to it. And it even had a little elevator. It was kind of a makeshift little hoist right at the back of the parking lot. So it was just made made for this. And he was gracious enough to allow me rent-free to store all this equipment. I could go get it as I needed it, and it was a beautiful thing. So then I'd get a request, somebody needs a clinic. Jennifer would also sometimes say, you know what, could you help out in this village or whatever? And so I'd go down, I'd see what I have, put it in a crate, get the truck, and take it on to the airport or wherever. I'll get into that a little bit later. Unfortunately, the landlord's building that part of the building has since burned down, but I had all of my equipment out of there by then too. God's perfect timing once again, huh? In the northwest part of Chicago, I'm kind of known as the Sanford and Son of dental equipment. So many times dentists or the suppliers will call me when they're getting rid of old equipment or remodeling an office or someone has died or retired. And as you know, a lot of times it's old and obsolete and it would just cost too much to ship it. Those old hydraulic chairs, these dentists think are worth a mint, but you know, they're like good boat anchors about all they could use them for. But there are also many times where I strike it rich and I get good equipment that actually works. As you can see, this chair is pretty nice and it's going to, you know, serve the needs of many people. Now the trick is getting it out of their office into my garage for temporary storage and then on to the next destination. Many times this little trailer, we one time loaded 3 dental chairs and it cracked the axle. So I know its limitations as well. So we have to rent a real U-Haul. But for smaller pickups and deliveries, I can do this little guy. Let's see. Okay, so, and sometimes I'll get friends. These guys were landscapers, and they are, you know, immigrants from Mexico. And when they found out that I was helping out a third world country, the owner of his company said, anytime you need help, my guys will come over, they'll help you. Because lifting these chairs is, you know, you can't do it by one person. You need a couple of people. So these guys will drop what they're doing. I say, could you come here and help me load and pack crates and boxes? They're part of the team. And it's just amazing to see, you know, when you allow people to help in God's plan, how they're so willing to work and participate. So I go out, I get the equipment, and then I bring it home to where my wife happily greets me and says, wow, I was hoping you'd get some more dental equipment to fill our garage. So she just loves it when I just come home and we got more on the other side there. Okay. How do you pack up 600 pounds of gangly dental equipment? With those guys' help. And then you need to crate it. It has to be contained in something. I checked with a crating company. It was going to cost $400 for them just to crate up my shipment. And I'm thinking, well, come on, then you got to ship it. So you might as well just buy a brand new chair down there, I suppose. So I decided to do it myself. I didn't know anything about crating or shipping, so I called Ron Lamb, the dental mission answer man, and he was very helpful in pointing me the right direction. This is well, he explained how you crate these things and what you need to do. This is what's called a Gaylord box. And you can see it's got a pallet on it, but it's 3 thicknesses of cardboard, and then it's got its own top. So it's perfect for this situation. First, I was looking for a crate, though, and I don't know, do you ever, when you're working, you feel that, you hear the still small voice nudging you into action? Well, one day I felt it pretty strongly, and I asked this one patient, do you work anywhere where they have crates? This guy came in, and he had like a blue uniform on. I didn't know what he did. And he said, well, sure. I work where they have Gaylord boxes. And I didn't know what it was. And he goes, well, it's got a pallet and this and this and this. And it's lighter than wood because it's cardboard. It'll hold whatever you need to ship it. And then you just put a band around it and send it off. And best of all, they're free. This guy would, because they throw them out at his business. So whenever I'd need a box or two, I'd call Bob, and the next morning, 2 or 3 of these things would be out in my back parking lot. I could go down to the landlord's basement, get it, ship it, and then rent a little forklift and have the truck come right there. It was beautiful. Since then, I've also, I don't know if you guys have ordered pianos or seen these big piano boxes, but they are very similar to this, a very sturdy box with a top, so you can pretty much, and even the sides come off, so you can load your shipment into the side, band around it, band the top, and then a forklift can just take it from there. And you'd be surprised of how resourceful some of these people in these different countries can be. This is one of the piano crates I used to ship dental equipment, and it turned into bookshelves for the school down there. You can see these little guys are, standing in front of their bookshelf. So this had no shelves in it, but this is how I know it wasn't my idea. I came down here one time and I said, boy, that looks familiar. And I turned it around, and that was my Yamaha piano crate. So once it's crated, you have to take it now to the airport, if it's just a 1 or 2 crates. To the big, most of the airports have these big, cargo docks where they load, not the regular passenger terminals. And you have it inspected, then they put their own steel bands around it, and they weigh it, and then you pay for it, and off it goes. Many times I'd take my little Sanford and Son trailer and driving with my Blazer, and it's got this big, humongous monster semi-trucks. You've seen some of those things. It's pretty intimidating. And once again, God paved the way for me. I pull up, and it's kind of scary when I'm there in my little toy truck, and you got these big monster trucks there. And this guy comes out with a forklift, and I look at him, and I said, boy, he looks a lot like one of my patients. And I said, do you know Dan Riley? He goes, yeah, he's my twin brother. So this guy, it looked identical twin to one of my patients, and he was there. I don't know if you guys know about shipping and loading, and these guys can be kind of rough and intimidating. But to see this guy's friendly face each successive times I went there too, it just was a real comfort. And he knew that he was my hero, and he'd watch out for me too. He liked participating again in the cause for Christ. When the shipments get bigger than just 1 or 2 crates, then I rent a container. And they'll, let's see here, one of these big containers, and they just, you tell them when you need it and where you need it, and they'll drop it off. They put it right down on the ground there, and they usually give you about 2 hours to load it, and then the clock starts ticking. But they were very gentle and gracious too. They said, we'll pick it up on Monday. So they dropped it off Friday. So I had the whole weekend to, my friends, we could load it and store it and, carefully pack it in there as best we could. Believe it or not, these things do get jostled around when they're going around. They hoist them up there, and eventually it gets to its destination. There's a group called Missionary Expediters who will help facilitate big shipments like this. They kind of know the ropes about the unions and the docks and the fees and the international water laws and all that stuff. And they also know the scammers, so they kind of help you avoid that. And they tell you what to expect on the other end. This is what the government's going to charge you. This is what they're going to want from you there. This is the paperwork that you're going to need to have it all cleared. Shipping costs are about $600 to $700 per crate, those little crates, and about $4,000 to $5,000 per big container. This is about half of it's about a half of a semi-truck. It's about 20 feet. I think a full one is 40 feet. It looks like the whole thing, but it was about a half of a semi. And there's also a company called Food for the Poor that's supposed to assist with some of these shipments too, but I haven't used them yet. We'll see, maybe next time I have a big shipment I will. So once it leaves my home, it gets trucked down to Miami. So this truck took it to Miami, then loaded. You've seen those big cargo ships with all these little boxes stuck on there. Well, that's what it does. And amazingly, it gets to the next destination within about 2 or 3 weeks. And for me, it's Kingston. There, and you have to have some good people on the other end who are willing to take a day or two off of work, go to the airport or the dock and unload it. First, you have to wire them the money so that they can go pay the storage fees and the security fees and the broker's fees and the dock fees and the taxes. And it's amazing, Russ, you're right, how many fees you can incur that you didn't know about. And then there's a couple more guys who just kind of hold your shipment hostage until you give them what they want. So, but again, we can't be discouraged by Satan. We know he's in there, and we know he's going to try to disrupt us with flat tires or broken collarbones, but you just kind of look past that and you say, this is my goal, and this is the end, and I have to get there, and God's going to see me through. A couple dollars here and there, I mean, you hate to pay it, but if that's what it needs, then you have to do it. So once your friends in the other part of the country, other part of the world, go to the airport, they have to go through it with customs agent, and then they have to go through your shipment, and you've itemized all the things that are on there, and you put a value on it, and so they have to have it cleared through customs, and hopefully it all makes it through without any hitches. Then they have to get it in a truck and get it to the next destination, which would be your clinic or wherever. And people there have been so good, storing it in their crawl space, storing it in the church, storing it in the church closet. It's just amazing, again, how everybody works together to coordinate this stuff. Early on when I was setting up things in Jamaica, telephones were just not very, it was kind of like the United States in the 30s or 40s. Electricity and telephones were really new. And guys with driver's license were very few and far between, and guys with trucks were even more scarce. So if you found a guy with a license, he didn't have a truck, and if you have a truck, there's nobody with a license, and just getting all that figured out was a challenge in itself. But more and more lately, it's a little more easy because telephone communication and they're coming around to the new century. Finding local people that you can trust and work with is very important. Because in all parts of the world, there are people who are out just for themselves. We typically will, and this is for one place where we set up a clinic, we'll scout the area out. We'll rent a home here, and then we went in and transformed this little home into a dental office. It was a rental, and they didn't really care. So we made the front room that's where we put our 3 portable Gale Cheatwood chairs, and then made the kitchen was our sterilization center. There's my wife and me, and we're working right in front of the bathroom, I think. Oh no, that's a bedroom there. We use the table for our instruments, and we have my daughters helping out with the sterilization. I can't say enough how important it is to bring your kids on these trips, but you guys all know that. And Dr. Bill Griffin, see, we got all the 3 Gale Cheatwood chairs all lined up in that little room. And thanks to Christian Dental Society being there when we need them. These are portable gooseneck lights, and those are the CDS units. They actually used to rent, and then they kind of passed them on to our Jamaica mission. And then we have flashlight holder, because the power is not so regular. And here we're actually in the bathroom. After a while, sorry, Gail, but those seats get a little bit hard on your bottom. And you see this toilet had a little fluffy top to it. And Sue's like, do you guys mind if we just put it in here? The patients didn't care as long as they got that toothache taken care of. So that's one of my favorite pictures. And in the same little village, we did work out of a church because we want to be with the body of Christ, serving the community. And this is where we found that the pastor was kind of more interested in what we could do for him and his family. So, there may be a line of 30 people out there, and we had a lady from Alabama would be she was the wife of one of the dentists, and she would be the receptionist, kind of bringing the patients in. And she'd stop by my chair and say, Jim, this is Pastor's mother. Isn't that nice? And the next one, Jim, this is Pastor's brother. Isn't that nice? Pretty soon we were seeing all of Pastor's relatives, and the poor, scruffy-looking kids who came down from the mountains, or the little old ladies were sitting out there waiting for 6 hours, and we're like seeing Pastor's whole family. So we started taking people in the back door, and we said, you know what, Pastor, this isn't right. We're here to serve. We're not here to glorify you. So that was the end of that relationship, and we we realized we had to move on. We've never packed up a clinic so quickly in our lives until when we were done on Thursday night, boom, we were out of there. And there's our little flashlight holder once again. And the kids, they bring some levity to the stressful situations too. I don't know where they come up with it, but sometimes they put their chicken feet on. All right. So eventually, in all the scouting, we found a very poor area and a needy population, and a pastor, Pastor Gloria Rowe, who was willing to work with us. Obviously, anybody you say, could I build a dental clinic in your backyard, would say yes, but this lady, she never has said no. If you need me to go to Kingston and wait there all day and bring a truck, yes, doc, yes, doc, yes, doc, everything. Pastor, can you clean out the clinic before we get there? Yes, doc. Pastor, can you store this in your bedroom for the next month? Yes, doc. Will you find a place for this? She is so positive. There's no hesitation in her voice. She knows it's good for the community, it's good for the body of Christ, it's good for her outreach, and the more we can do together, the better things are for everyone. It's just a little, sometimes you bring little treats for the kids along the way too. Actually, I'm going back a little bit, this is our first clinic up in Mavis Bank. And as you can see, these are a couple of the chairs that came from my wife's office, nice matching chairs, and the doctor's stools, and the clinic looks a little different now. It's got more and more stuff in there, but God's blessed me with patience and a love to tinker with little things and figure out how to pack these into crates and then unpack them and take them apart, and I love doing that. I don't know why. It's kind of strange, but we're all kind of mechanical in certain spots, but it doesn't bother me to, but the problem is remembering once, 3 months later, where did this screw go? So I at home, when something needs to be fixed, they call me Project Man. I put on my belt. Let's see if I can do it here. And I go to work. In Jamaica, I'm more known as Project Mon. And so now we take the show on the road from my house. Where's Woody? So anyway, I got it all. And you know what? Again, God's equipped me with tools. He makes sure I have the right things to get the job done. So this is our first clinic in Mavis Bank. You got to bring what you need to these places, otherwise you don't have it. I needed some washers. I'm at the local hardware store. It says hardware store, but all they had was like sand and concrete and chicken feed, and I'm thinking, boy, I needed some washers and I needed a Phillips screwdriver. No, I mean, that's out of the question. So I took some of the Jamaican coins, drilled a hole through it. They make really nice washers. And the screwdriver, we just had to cut, we just had to make do without that. Anyway, I learned, though, you got to bring the tools. So wherever I go now, I leave some tools with whoever is in charge. And again, it's amazing how God uses us in different ways. Guys who come down on the mission trips with us, many times some of the husbands are good at repairs, and some of these guys will, if a chair motor's not working, he'll sit there for hours and just take it apart. The greasier the better for some of these farmers who like to come down there. Let's see here. And then sometimes the chairs are used for tired dentists at the end of the long day. This is John Drescher, who's been a blessing to our ministry for years and years. We haven't been able to get him to one of these meetings, but he is just a stalwart, and he comes on several mission trips a year. He's probably 72 or so now, but he's a real character. Some of my patients like to come with us, too. Over the years, they said, you know what, I'm not a dentist, but is there something I could do to help out? This guy was an engineer, I think, for AT&T. He loves to fix the sterilizer. So Friday or Sunday night we get there, that's the first thing he does. He goes and he tunes them all up, he changes the gaskets, he makes sure they're all in working order so that we can have good sterilization that week. This is another God story. This is Raymond. He's a denturist from Montego Bay. We had set up a dental lab down there. You can see all the dental lab stuff, and we have teeth in there. We have boil-out tanks. We have model trimmers, but we didn't have any lab techs. We tried to do it, but I don't know when the last time you guys did a wax try-in and a setup and all that stuff was. But it was a nightmare. So one day I was buying some telephone minutes for my Jamaica cell phone. This is in Montego Bay, and this clinic is actually in Kingston, 5 hours away. But I had to stop over there. I was buying some minutes, and the guy says, what are you doing here? I said, well, I'm a dentist. I do missionary dental work over in Kingston. He said, oh, I just got my teeth yesterday. And he showed me his teeth. And I said, oh yeah, that's what I need. That's who I need to come over and help me out. Do you think this guy would ever help us out? And he goes, well, let's call him and ask him. So he dials him up. That second, I'm talking to Raymond. I said, Raymond, this is the story. We come from the United States. We take a lot of teeth out. We don't have any way to put them back in. Would you ever consider coming over and helping us out? Sure, man. That's what he says. I mean, no hesitation again. God just puts these people in your path, and you just have to be willing to ask, and it's amazing, once again, how it all comes together. So Raymond now, after Bill extracted 195 teeth last week, he will follow up and make the people dentures. Oftentimes, it's these young teenage boys who've hit themselves on the playground, and they're going to have a life without front teeth, and we know how hard it is to get a job without teeth. I mean, these kids have very little chance of a future, but if they can at least look presentable, it helps out. So Raymond comes, we bring the acrylic and all the supplies he needs. He charges half of his fee, which isn't too much anyway, and everybody's happy. He does the follow-up, he does good dentures, and he does it the Jamaican way. They're quicker than what we could have ever done too. And then we come with our own clinic coordinator there. This is William Griffin, Dr. Griffin's son. He keeps track of all the patients' extractions. Nobody messes with him. All right. So I'll just go through a couple of these. This is Dallas, by the way. There's a Dallas, Jamaica. And it's a little village that oftentimes it is without power, and God watches over us while we're down there working. And believe it or not, 3 or 4 different occasions, we've had no power the whole day, and any of the root tips that we've fractured off or broke off, we're able to get out without a handpiece. It's amazing, and this little town is known for that, I guess, giving up the root tips. So this is a 1-chair office. This was donated by just a guy down the street from me. So it's interesting how the word of God spreads. I mean, just through dental equipment. Oh, this guy can use this, yeah. And then I send him a thank you note and maybe a picture of this for his reception area, how God's using this old dental chair. We had to jerry-rig a little water supply. You can see that garden sprayer there. I didn't really trust the water supply down there because it sometimes gets a little murky when you turn on a faucet or if it's running at all. So that's just a pump sprayer. So basically, dental equipment is you got air and water. The air is a compressed air compressor, and you just drives the dental handpieces in your air system, and then the water, you just pressurize that little thing, and you got your water. Very simple. So tell that to the repairman next time he comes through and he wants to charge you $700 for unclogging something. Couple quick stories. I know we're running out of time here. Let's see, let me just fly through some. Oh, okay, so this is the little 1-chair dental clinic down in Dallas. This was the judge. He's a local magistrate. You wouldn't believe when I'm sitting in there drilling holes, these local guys were like, could I just drill one of those holes? They wanted to come in and handle the drill and just, could I bore one of the holes, man? I'm like, well, I've on a time frame here. And this guy just wanted to come by and see what was all the commotion was. He just wanted to sit in the chair, and it was kind of like big news in the town. They told me they were waiting for 17 years for a dental chair from the government, and it just never materialized. Okay.
How many clinics?
7.
7?
Yes. So this is at the Golden Age home. This is kind of a government-supported retirement place for abandoned people, retarded, broken, deformed bodies. And this is kind of, the poor government people are just outnumbered. They just don't know how to handle these people, just trying to keep them clean and fed, and a lot of them are mentally disabled as well. We have a 1-chair dental clinic here that we try to get to once a year. Pretty much if we get in there once a year, we can manage all their dental needs. Many of them can't walk, so they just use their feet. So you hand them something and they'll grab your feet. This one lady who's kneeling here, I think she thinks if she had some shoes, she could walk, because she keeps asking for shoes. She's also, this young guy kind of just, they tie him up so that he doesn't get in the mud and make such a mess. He sits out outside the clinic and he kind of makes a little elephant sound. But anyway, it's a kind of a interesting place, but you know that they're children of God too, and whatever we need to do to relieve their pain, it's important too. This is the same lady who wanted the shoes. She's kind of afraid of heights. We tried to put her up in a dental chair, but she just would not have it. So Dr. Jeff Hauger here is improvising, and she did fine on the ground, just laying on his lap. The physical touch, I think, also helps when you just reach out and touch these people and just show them a little bit of love. This is an orphanage. As you can see, it generates a lot of attention when I bring this equipment in. Again, we used a Yamaha piano crate there to get it down to its destination. This is a nice chair. Sometimes when I set one of these up, because there's 7 of them, it's hard to get back and service all the people in these clinics. So the government came over, the Ministry of Health chief dental officer, and he looked at this after I was done, and he said, you know what, we'll send a dental nurse over here. And this dental nurse would come once a week, and she could treat the kids up until age 16. And this is an orphanage, and they adopt them, I think, out at 17, so that was perfect. All we needed to do is set up the facility there, and they took over from there. And their curiosity my helpers there got to them. They wanted to see what the air and water, because they've never been to a dentist either. We were also able, in one of those shipments, to ship down a bunch of computers. Sanford and Son, we take any old junk, and so we got a bunch of computers and set up a little computer lab for the kids there too. Father Richard Holong is a Chinese Jamaican. He was a professor at Boston University. He's a priest, but he, was excelling in the academic field, but he just felt God's calling to go back to Jamaica and serve the poor, because nobody was really taking care of the poor, the deformed, the aged, the AIDS patients. A lot of times they'll just take these people and leave them at the gate or the police station or leave them in a park, these young kids who have no way to communicate, and they're just there left to die. So that first one where the people were laying out, that's kind of the government clinic where they take care of them. And this is a Christ-based clinic where the brothers and Father Holong take care of these kids. They clean them, they bathe them, they feed them. They just give them a sanctuary, and it's just a big difference when you see how God's taking care of his children and how the Jamaican government takes care of theirs. This little guy was about 13 years old. He just never really grew, and he was kind of like stiff as a board. And he had, you're never sure what's wrong with these guys. He's blind and deaf and has asthma. But when he is in her arms, look at his enthusiasm. And she gives him a kiss, and he's like in heaven. He can't talk, and he's just beaming. And that's just kind of fun to see that type of response. He has since passed away, but his little legacy lives on over there too. All right, let's see here. Like I said, the brothers who take care of these residents, it's just amazing. They've taken some guys from the hospital who are violent and on bipolar or whatever these guys do, and the doctors have to inject them with all these sedatives and things like that, and they take them out of that environment and they just put them in these homes. It's peaceful. This is in the heart of Kingston ghettos where all the shooting was just a couple months ago. In fact, last time we were here in December, we heard 6 shots right outside the door there. But inside, they build walls around the place about as tall as this room. Inside, you just feel a sense of God's peace, his presence. You go into the room where all the babies are, and there's no crying. It's just peaceful. This is our clinic in Bethlehem Lord's Place, it's called. It's always a good idea when you're setting up clinics to get a layout of the floor plan of the room. Well, I didn't here, and I was banking on the ceiling being about 8 feet tall. You could see these lights here that were made for ceiling mounts. I got there, and they're like 12 feet tall ceilings, and I'm sitting there thinking, what the heck are we going to do here? Well, the brothers are so resourceful. They have welding capabilities, and you could see they welded these nice little headbangers up here that mounted the lights on there. So that's kind of cool. When these guys participate too, it's like, all right, how are we going to solve this problem? And these guys, I was assigned 5 brothers to help me with this setup. So that was really nice to have somebody unpacking the stuff and hooking it up. And let's see. I don't want to take up too much time. How are we doing?
We're going to need to wrap up.
All right.
I'm sorry.
All right. Well, let me say just a few more things here. Oh, there we go. That's one of the characters who got in. There's another place where we're. Well, let me just wrap this up by just saying what a blessing it has been to partner with guys like Bill and all the rest of you guys who are part of the body of Christ. And I've met some lifelong friends through it. These students are wonderful. I would emphasize taking the students for all the reasons that Bill said, just because it's just energy and enthusiasm. Don't let any obstacles stand in your way because, keep your eye on the prize here. We designed this clinic to be a happy clinic. We wanted all the hands of Christ working together, all different colors, these kids, and we meet at the cross serving our Lord. That's my mom. We dedicated the clinic to her. And my dad, my best friend down there in the equipment room, workers. And again, these kids are just amazing. I bring kids with me. They help with puppet shows, puppet ministries. And I know you guys are getting a little bit tired here. Families are awesome to bring to, again, lifelong friends. And we also bring gospel bracelets. It's good for these kids to evangelize, to share the gospel. And this is their little group of school friends at home doing the gospel bracelets. So they send out their friends in mission to the world. Occasionally we do run into some trouble with these kids. So we have a way to deal with them, and we take care of them in a short manner. Anyway, thank you very much. I'm not sure where my next clinic will be. I said we're going to branch out a little bit and get outside the box. But I'm sure it'll be looking for more fish. Anyway, thank you very much.